Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio. Boy, it's been a while. I think I remember you. Brian Leonard, how you doing, buddy?
I had longer hair at that point.
Yeah, you did. You trying to make...
I also didn't have a championship from Cleveland.
Hey, there you go. This is true. Well, congratulations. That's right. You were away when the Cleveland Cavaliers got that deciding Game 7, and we were texting many miles apart. You were back in Florida, and pretty exciting stuff. But let's get right into it. This has been your meat and potatoes the last few years. You love going down to the Golden Nugget. They've been always the first on the Strip, bringing out the opening college football lines. They call them their games of the year. They select generally a couple hundred games, put them out there. You guys go down there and beat them up on them. But this year they weren't the first to bring out some numbers. Chris Andrews at South Point brought some out. He didn't bring out as many as the Golden Nugget usually does, but it did have an effect, I hear, this year on the Golden Nugget lines.
Yeah, it was very strange. Our friend, good old friend Chris, did not tell us ahead of time that he was going to put those numbers out, so I was out of town when he put them out. So I don't really know what happened at the South Point. I do know those numbers are out and they've been bet into, and he did a pretty good job over there. But I was in town because it was highly publicized. Tony and Aaron over at the Golden Nugget were saying when they were going to put them out, which was on the 8th, I believe.
July.
And so I got down there early, just like I always do. And normally I see a lot of people that I know down there because it's a yearly thing. It was strange this year because I only saw maybe 3 or 4 people that I actually knew. There was a lot of people there that I'd never seen before, which is actually good for Tony because they're bringing people in from outside the Vegas area to bet into those games. So that worked out very well for him. But last year he had 200 games. He limited it to 100 this year. And I think a lot of people were thinking, since there was already a few places that already had their numbers out, it wouldn't be as much difference in the lines over there at the Golden Nugget. So I think that's why some of the normal people that show up did not show up this year.
Yeah, well, what ends up happening in our buddy Sports Cheetah, he was at South Point, and he pounded a lot of games. And to quote him, he ran out of money, and he didn't bring enough over for all the games that he bet, and he ended up going back and betting a second time. What ends up happening, though, even though it's different games that the Golden Nugget brought out, it's still some of the teams that got hit a certain direction, and you see it every year where there'll be one team that the lines maker may be overrated or underrated, and it seems like all of the sharp bettors are taking games the same direction involving those teams. So once they got to see what teams got hit at South Point, kind of helped them massage the numbers a little bit, I'm sure, at the Golden Nugget. And as you said, that takes away some of the value for the sharps coming down to play the Golden Nugget games.
Yeah, there was about 8 games I wanted to play when I was down there. And keep in mind, I played 23 last year. Yeah. So there was 8 I wanted to play, and I was only able to get in 3 because the lines moved on the others. His biggest movement, I think, was TCU. TCU was a little bit low there. Everybody seemed to hit them.
Okay. One of the games that you did, and we're going to preview 3 of the ones that you bet. We're going to start it off. The first one is Michigan at Michigan State for one of the Golden Nugget games. And you got this one at Michigan State +4. Quickly, a couple points on that one, and I got a couple things to say because I agree with you on this one.
Yeah, basically, I do things a little bit differently when it comes to the games of the years. A lot of people want the games that are coming up on the schedule right there. They don't want to keep their money up. But if you're handicapping correctly, you're going to have more of an advantage as the season goes on. For example, Michigan State's got a great quarterback that's not going to be back this year. So their power rating at the beginning of the year is going to be weak. But by the time they get to this game against Michigan, they'll be back into the offense and they'll be where they should be. And I thought it was a lot of value here. I know a lot of people are going to Michigan right now, to me, they're completely overrated. Everybody thinks Michigan's the next coming of Ohio State, and they're going to win the national championship. I think they're a little bit short in that regard. And you take a look at Michigan State; they're good all the time. And just last year, supposedly they got lucky to beat Michigan. Yeah. They out-yarded Michigan by 130 yards in that game.
Yeah, and so it definitely will be a game that'll be circled on the calendar for Michigan because of the way they lost the game. But to back what you're saying, yes, the stock on Michigan is high. It's as high as it's ever been. Harbaugh comes in first year, goes 10-3 with this team, blows out Florida in the bowl game. Expectations are going to be more for the next season. And, you look at Michigan, their defense last year was the signature of the team. I mean, they had that one stretch, if you remember last year. They went over a 5-game period, they allowed just 14 points over 5 games. Well, they're not bringing back, a lot of that defense, and they're losing some of the guys up front. They're only bringing back 2 defensive linemen up front. But more importantly, they're not bringing back the defensive coordinator who left Michigan to take the head coaching job at Maryland. I think that's going to be a little bit of a drop-off as well. And as you said, with Michigan State, they've been a good program for a long time. Good programs don't rebuild. They just reload. They get the talent. And as you said, the key point, later in the season, they're going to be better. This is, I think, the 8th game of the season for them on their schedule. So that team will be gelled, and they'll be a lot better. And I think that people will have underestimated them at the beginning of the season. They'll catch up to them by game 8, and you're going to get value, I feel, with the +4. And it's a rivalry game, and you're playing at home. And this is one of those rivalries when most people say, okay, it's Michigan, Michigan State. This is one where I say it's more of a one-sided rivalry. Yes, Michigan doesn't want to lose to Michigan State, but that's not their biggest rival on their schedule each year. For Michigan, it's the Ohio State game. But for Michigan State, it's this one. I agree with you.
You talked about the Michigan defense. I don't think it's going to be a drop-off. They brought in the defensive coordinator for Boston College, and he had them #1 last year, so he's very good. But, take a look at, nobody's ever talking about this, but Michigan lost more seniors off of that roster last year than anybody else. Now, granted, a lot of them were guys that didn't play a lot, but when you lose a lot of senior leadership like that, that's going to hurt you as it goes on. And, this is the only game Michigan plays on grass this year, and we already talked about what happened last year, but Michigan has lost 4 of the last 5 games in the series, all 5 against the spread. So this isn't something that all of a sudden they're the great team. Michigan State has really played them well. Michigan State, has won 11 games or more, 5 out of the last 6 years. They haven't lost as a home dog since 2009.
Got to do it.
They know it. They know that people are saying they got lucky. They're going to prove it.
All right. That's play #1 for Brian on the Golden Nugget Games of the Year. We'll have more of them coming up next at Wager Talk. But don't forget, guys, every weekend, it's our weekend all access. Just $69. You can get your favorite capper, get all of his plays Thursday through Monday, each and every weekend. Just $69 at wagertalk.com. We'll be back with more.